Hello, visionary leaders and inspired leaders and authentic leaders and emerging leaders and hidden leaders. These video teachings are in support of you and your leadership journey as you take your greatness out into the world and hopefully change the baseline way that leaders think. So today's session highlights how one unconscious leader can inform the lens of how a young person actually views the world for years to come, and how leaders can shape the trajectory of another person's journey in life, both positively and negatively. And for each of us to consider where we sit on the consciousness scale and how we affect other people when we're mentoring, when we're leading, when we're speaking, and just in general when we show up in the world. As always, these videos are meant for us to explore our own leadership journey first, because we can't lead other people where we have not been. And if I can ignite something in you at the age of 35 or 40 or 45 years of age, then you will be way ahead of where I was at your age. So today I want to share with you a powerful story around what happened to me at a young age that informed my leadership journey. So when I was 7 years old, yes, 7 years old, I do remember this, I experienced a very pivotal moment. I was the new kid, yet again in a grade 2 class, um, because we moved every 2 years as a kid. My dad was with the police force, and that was just part of the game. So in grade 2, kid in class, my teacher assigned us a simple task: find a poem, memorize it, stand in front of the class and memorize it and recite it. Sorry. So I was pretty shy, and being the new kid in school, of course, I didn't really know many of my classmates very well. So my very shy 7-year-old self was terrified, intimidated, self-conscious, lacking confidence. But I practiced the poem over and over and over until I had it memorized, and I absolutely loved that poem. It's called The Puffin. So with a very small, shaky voice, I basically stood in front of the class and I shared my little tiny heart. There once was a puffin just the shape of a muffin who lived on an island in the bright blue sea. And he ate little fishes that were most delicious, and he had them for supper and he had them for tea. And then suddenly the class burst out laughing. So the teacher stopped me and told me to go sit down and come back when I decided to take my homework serious. I was 7, grade 2. What was there to take seriously? But in that moment, clear as the summer sky, something inside me changed. Something inside me decided it was definitely safer to disappear than it was to shine. So I sat down, I would say a smaller version of myself than when I stood up. And I never forgot that poem, ever. So for the next 35 years, I mastered the art of dimming my light. I became observant, adaptable, and hyper aware. And I lived behind an image to protect the real me, the one that was told to sit down and be better, basically. Little did I know that this poem moment would one day reveal the profound effect of unconscious leadership. So that moment wasn't just about shame and embarrassment, it was about identity. It was the first time I learned to consciously self silence and edit myself for safety. And over time, life simply reinforced what I came to believe about myself. It's not safe to be the center of attention. So growing up, we moved every 2 years, new schools, new houses, new cities, new ecosystems. So I became exceptional at reading rooms and very good at reinvention, which is actually one of my strengths to this day. So who do I need to be here? What version of me will they accept? How do I bend to fit into a space that already hurts? At that point, reinvention wasn't empowerment for me yet. It was simply unconscious survival. And that pattern followed me into adulthood, into marriage, into business, and into leadership. I became a 40-year entrepreneur, built companies, created national certifications, developed industry programs and standards. And from the outside, I would say that probably people, I guess I probably appeared confident. People would have thought I was confident, successful, and pretty much had it all together. But internally, I was still editing, still self silencing, still managing rejection, image, and self worth, still performing rather than embodying authenticity. And here's what I've come to understand: most leaders don't struggle with strategy, they struggle with the silent agreements they made when they were 5, 6, 7 years old. So moving every 2 years taught me something very powerful, that my identity could be fluid. I was a successful chameleon that could bend, blend, shift, and alter at whim. Early on, it felt sort of destabilizing to be like this and maybe a little bit inauthentic, but over time, it actually became one of my superpowers. I've traveled to over 30 countries, competed in many ultra distance endurance races, and basically fearlessly tested my limits in all different areas of my life. And why do I do that? Because somewhere inside me was a burning desire to challenge who the world told me I was supposed to be. And then came Ghana and Guyana and Cambodia and Peru and Myanmar, just to name a few. I went as a leadership mentor, believing I was there to help, to save the world. I believed I was bringing them something they needed. But instead, I received something profound. I received their joy and their dignity and their love and their laughter and their inspiration. There was never any pity in their lived experiences, only humanity. And those experiences filled me with a universal knowledge, and that is that leadership wasn't about status or credentials. It was about alignment and coherence. What you believe shapes your thoughts, which creates your emotions, which decides your actions, which creates your results. And that is true alignment. That is coherence. We talked a bit about this in the previous teaching. In Myanmar, I had the amazing opportunity to watch a 14-year-old girl outshine 47 entrepreneurs aged 19 to 47. Effectively, she was the uncensored 14-year-old version of who I never got to be at that age because of that teacher when I was 7. She had no title, she had no LinkedIn bio, just innocent courage, clarity, and certainty. And that's when it clicked. Leadership isn't a title, not power or success or education. It's both universal and ageless. And most importantly, it's an energetic signature. And whether we realize it or not, we are emitting that signature everywhere we go. So through my global and local work, I've witnessed one consistent truth. Workplaces are still built on fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of being exposed, fear of not being heard, fear of being irrelevant, fear of being seen, fear of not being seen, fear of being outshone, fear of not meeting the KPIs or the ROIs. And so we build cultures around performance and fear rather than coherence and alignment. We celebrate burnout as dedication. We normalize anxiety as ambition, and we inherit leadership styles without questioning their origin. And then we wonder why people are disengaged, overwhelmed, burnt out, and medicated. The issue isn't strategy, it's an outdated emotional software that's still guiding the system. A software that says, be perfect, be the best, never say no, be liked, be hyper-educated. Work comes first, you're not enough, don't be too much, and above all, sit down and be quiet. But authentic leadership doesn't come by adding more credentials or being more perfect. It comes from subtracting what was never yours to carry in the first place. So that puffin moment, that's software. And when we don't update our software, we scale our wounds. So over the years, through entrepreneurship and endurance racing and global travel and deep spiritual and leadership study, I've been able to distill reinvention into some very practical steps. And everything begins with awareness. Because you cannot change what you cannot see. You do not know or you do not confront. And you cannot create new choices without those new awarenesses. New awarenesses always come first. So several years ago, I was asked to speak at a global wellness conference. And each year, for 4 consecutive years, I was invited. And each year, I was asked to present more and more workshops. But something about the organization never felt fully in alignment with my values or my intention or where I saw myself going. There always seemed to be a lot of peacocking and siloing and image flaunting, not to mention eating disorders. And yet I kept saying yes. And the last year I presented was in 2019. And as I was packing up to fly home, I had made the decision that I wouldn't come back. I realized that I was compromising my values, my boundaries, and my time to accommodate the extraordinary demands of this organization. And I was doing what the world taught me: say yes at all costs in order to validate my worth. This was a powerful aha moment for me that felt like instant relief, like an anchor release, and like my wings could extend. And out of this realization came a powerful new choice. The only person I wanted to say yes to was me. Self realization is not self criticism, blame, judgment, or guilt. It's radical self honesty without shame. It's the willingness to pause long enough to ask uncomfortable questions of yourself. Where did I learn that saying yes equals my worth? When did vulnerability become a weakness? Who taught me that success is tied to productivity? At what moment did I decide dimming my light was safer than expressing it? Awareness is the moment the unconscious becomes visible. And visibility always creates choice, and choice is the foundation of freedom. Without awareness, we don't lead, we repeat. We repeat inherited patterns, inherited fears, inherited leadership scripts that we never consciously chose. It's in the moment when you realize you are not broken, you are patterned. And with awareness, patterns can be unwritten, unlearned, and rewritten. The second thing is intention. Once awareness creates a space for you to mentally breathe, intention gives direction. More specifically, that is the why behind the actions, the goals, and the milestones. This realization supercharges results because leadership is never neutral. We're always leading from something, from fear or trust, from scarcity or possibility, from performance or presence. So the question then becomes, what energetic signature do you want to lead from? Below the line, above the line? Courage instead of performance? Safety that expands possibility? Curiosity that replaces judgment? Presence that builds trust? Intention is where leadership becomes internal power. You stop reacting from history and begin responding from design, specifically your design. And intention does something powerful. It shifts leadership from external validation to internal alignment, from proving to embodying, and from doing leadership to being leadership. And then the third piece is deliberate imperfect action. So this is a step that most people avoid. It scares them the most. Deliberate imperfect action. You move before you feel ready, not recklessly, but consciously. Action before certainty. Movement before comfort. Because insight without action becomes a legacy stall. Deliberate imperfect action is not meant to be reckless. It is courageous alignment in motion. In other words, it is speaking while your voice still shakes, setting boundaries before you feel ready, leading before the approval arises, showing up as yourself even if it disrupts expectations, and holding your boundaries even when it's hard. Because alignment doesn't eliminate fear. That's not the point. It simply asks fear to ride shotgun. And this is where leadership transforms, because aligned power isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention, it generates coherence. And coherence is magnetic. Coherence creates trust. Trust creates psychological safety. Safety creates culture. And culture creates a legacy built through small, consistent, aligned, deliberate, imperfect actions repeated over time. Actions that ripple and reshape baseline thinking systems, teams, organizations, families, generations. So that is my story. So will you become still long enough? There's a piece around the ripple effect that we create that's so powerful. So I want to close the story by saying that your ripple effect is actually your legacy. And here's what we often forget: that a ripple can only be experienced if the pond is still. If the water's chaotic, the ripple is one of fear or urgency, performance, overwhelm, burnout. We are creating impact from turbulence. And aligned impact doesn't come from force, it emerges from stillness. A stillness that isn't passive, but rather it's focused, intentional power. When your inner world is steady, your presence creates safety, and your decisions ripple cleanly through systems and teams and generations to become the new baseline legacy, the new baseline way of being, the new baseline way of thinking. And our workplaces, they do not need louder leaders. Lord knows we've got some loud leaders in the world today. They need steadier ones, because when the pond is still, even the smallest intentional action travels further than anyone could ever imagine. So remember that poem I started at the beginning, the Puffin poem. Little did the teacher know that that poem was actually about love, inclusion, and belonging. And I turned it into a song that I now sing for my grandbabies. Full circle moment. So your legacy isn't what you accomplish, it's the ripple you leave behind. So the question is, will you remain still long enough for your ripple to matter? Will you enter the cave you fear so you can find the treasure that you're seeking? So I wanted to share this painful story to inspire you to look at your pivotal moment as a beautiful lesson that was given to you to see the strength and resilience that is far stronger than the pain of the experience. And this experience that I shared with you is just one of many experiences that informed my journey from childhood into adulthood. But it's the first one that I can remember that taught me to play small. So I would be very curious to know what your poem moment was, and what gifts you're leaving behind because of that moment. Why are you hiding? Why are you dimming your voice? Why are you playing small? Why are you hiding in the shadows? So in my next teaching, I'm going to be sharing some of the most common leader images that we hide behind and the price that it costs us. So for those of you that are listening, you've made it to the end. If this is like hitting you hard, landing hard, resonating powerfully, then I invite you to hop over to Facebook, join me in the free private Facebook group called Leaders in the New Paradigm, a Ripple Effect Collective. You can also hop over to my website, miajarrett.com, and click on the free link for the leader meter, where you can identify for yourself what type of leader you are based on this work. And if you want to take it one step further, you can also DM me to do a free leader assessment call. It's about 20 minutes long, and I'll go a little deeper into your leader meter with you. So until next time, remember to step up, speak up, listen to your gut, and question everything, because that's what visionary leaders do. So until next time, I will see you on the other side.